At 3 a.m., under a clear sky on I-95, the cab can begin to feel like the whole world. The diesel hum repeats itself until thought becomes dull, and the large steering wheel in your hands feels less like an object and more like a verdict. 500 miles straight. A delivery window. A reputation. A bill waiting at home. A dispatcher who will not feel your eyelids getting heavy. And beneath it all, one belief starts speaking: I cannot stop. I cannot be the man who fails this run. That is not the road talking. That is judgment attaching worth to an external thing. Epictetus would tell you to look closely. The hall is an event. The hum is an impression. The urgency is not yet truth. Before you obey it, you must ask what remains yours to govern. The first boundary is not painted on the asphalt. It is not the white line beside the shoulder, not the exit sign, not the mile marker disappearing behind the trailer. The first boundary is inside the mind, at the point where an event becomes a command. Driving 500 miles straight is an event. It is a demand placed in time. It has weight, consequences, pressure, and people attached to it. There may be a customer waiting. There may be a dispatcher watching the clock. There may be a paycheck tied to the run. There may be a family at home whose groceries, rent, and repairs depend on work being done well. None of that is imaginary. Stoicism does not ask a man to pretend externals do not matter. It asks him not to give externals the throne. Because the road can make a false emperor out of urgency. At 3 a.m., the highway is clear. That is external. The schedule is tight. External. The number of miles remaining. External. The reputation you want to keep. External. The opinion of a manager, broker, customer, or other driver. External. The weather staying clear for now. External. The past choice that put you on this stretch of road at this hour. External. What remains yours? Your judgment. Your assent. Your intention. Your attention. Your next response. That sounds small until the moment arrives when small is everything. The diesel hum keeps repeating. The cab is warm. The large steering wheel rests under your hands, solid and familiar. The road does not shout. It soothes. It flattens the mind. It invites you to drift into a belief before you have examined it. And the belief may be this: I have to keep going because stopping means failure. That is where Epictetus would stop you. He would not begin with the miles. He would begin with the judgment. He would ask, who told you that your worth is located 500 miles away? Who told you that your ruling faculty must kneel before a delivery window? Who told you that a man's responsibility is measured by stubborn motion rather than by examined choice? Responsibility is not the same as refusal to pause. Duty is not the same as obedience to pressure. Discipline is not proved by ignoring what judgment has plainly seen. A man may be responsible for the load without being the master of every condition surrounding it. He may be responsible for his conduct without controlling every outcome. He may be responsible for making a sound decision without being able to guarantee that everyone approves of it. This is the clean line. You do not control whether the clock is generous. You do not control whether another person respects your decision. You do not control whether the route gives you easy options exactly when you want them. You do not control whether your body feels alert on command. You do not control the fact that the rhythmic hum of the diesel engine can press on attention after hours of driving. But you do control whether you call the pressure truth. You control whether you say, this impression is here, but it is not my ruler. You control whether you return attention to the large steering wheel, not as a symbol of domination over the road, but as a reminder of the next governable act. Hand steady. Mind awake enough to judge. Eyes honest. Pride set down. The next decision made by reason, not by fear of being seen as weak. The boundary of control is not an excuse to abandon duty. It is the only way to perform duty without becoming owned by what duty touches. The trucker who confuses control with outcome becomes a servant of everything outside him. A late delivery commands him. A reputation commands him. A number on a map commands him. The imagined voice of criticism commands him. Even the hum of the engine begins to command him. But the trucker who understands the boundary can say, the hall is mine to handle, but not mine to worship. The schedule is mine to respect, but not mine to obey against judgment. The road is mine to travel, but not mine to let into the seat of reason. This is what remains yours in the room of the cab, not the whole road, not the whole night, not the whole result, but the faculty that can examine an impression before accepting it. That faculty is not dramatic. It does not need applause. It does not need to win an argument with the world. It only needs to govern the next act. And at 3 a.m., on I-95, That may be the difference between a man being carried by pressure and a man still standing inside his own judgment. The danger does not begin when the truck crosses a line. It begins earlier, when the mind accepts an appearance without trial. That is why Epictetus keeps bringing attention back to impressions. Not because impressions are evil. Not because a man can stop them from appearing. The first movement of the mind often happens before permission. A sound presses in. A memory rises. A fear takes shape. The body grows tired. The road stretches out. The diesel hum folds 1 minute into another. Then the mind says, before reason has spoken, this is urgent. This is personal. This must be answered right now. That first appearance is the impression. The impression says, 500 miles straight has authority over you. The judgment says, if I do not complete this run without stopping, I am failing. The assent says, yes, that is true. I will act from it. Those three are not the same thing. Most men suffer because they treat them as one motion. Something appears, they believe it, and then they obey it. They call this instinct. They call it pressure. They call it reality. But often it is only an unexamined agreement made in the dark. At 3 a.m., the hypnotic lure of sleep does not only pull at the body. It also tests the ruling faculty. It asks whether the man behind the wheel will keep possession of his judgment or hand it over to the atmosphere of the cab. The clear sky can make the road look harmless. The empty lanes can make the hour feel manageable. The steady engine can make alertness feel unnecessary. And the mind, pressed by duty and pride, can take all of this and form a careless sentence, keep going. You have no choice. But there is almost always a falsehood inside the phrase, I have no choice. A man may have hard choices. Costly choices. Humbling choices. Choices that expose him to criticism. Choices that require a phone call he does not want to make, a delay he does not want to explain, or a correction to the plan he wanted to finish cleanly. But the absence of an easy choice is not the absence of choice. Assent is where the chain can be broken. The impression may arrive, the haul is urgent. You answer, an impression is present. The judgment may form, my worth depends on finishing this exactly as planned. You answer, that is a judgment, not a fact. The pressure may insist, the road decides what I must do. You answer, the road presents conditions. My faculty examines them. This is not softness. It is discipline. The undisciplined mind is not the one that feels fear, fatigue, pressure, or pride. The undisciplined mind is the one that bows before the first appearance and calls the bow necessity. The large steering wheel becomes important here because attention needs a place to return. Not as a trick. Not as a superstition. As a concrete reminder that the next act must be chosen, not merely performed. Your hands are there. The wheel is there. The road is there. The hum is there. The impression is there. But none of these has the right to pass judgment in your place. The Stoic task is to slow the inward agreement. Before the next movement, name what is happening. This is the impression of urgency. This is the belief that reputation is more important than reason. This is the shadow of highway hypnosis trying to speak as if it were wisdom. This is fatigue pressing for command. Once named, the impression loses some of its disguise. It may still be strong. It may still feel convincing. But now it stands before judgment instead of sitting inside judgment. Now it can be examined. Now the man can separate the event from the story he has added to it. The event, a trucker is on I-95 at 3 a.m., facing miles ahead. The story, stopping, delaying, or changing course would prove he is weak, unreliable, or less worthy. The event belongs to circumstance. The story belongs to judgment. This is the place where freedom begins, not in getting the road to obey, not in forcing the schedule to be kind, not in making other people understand, but in refusing to let an appearance become a master without examination. Assent should be earned. Let the impression speak, but do not crown it. Let pressure rise, but do not confuse pressure with law. Let the mind feel the pull of the night, the hum, the long road, the fear of consequences, and still say, I will not agree until I have judged rightly. That pause is small. It is inward. No one may see it. But it is the difference between being driven by the road and governing the man who drives. Ascesis does not begin in a quiet room with a book open and a clear mind. It begins where the impression presses hardest. For this trucker, it begins inside the cab, with the diesel engine humming the same low note over and over, the highway stretching ahead, and the large steering wheel held between tired hands. The practice is not imaginary. It is not a theory about virtue spoken safely from a distance. It is the discipline of governing the next inward motion while the road, the hour, the schedule, and the body all seem to be asking for command. Ascesis means training. And training is never proved by what a man says he believes when nothing is pulling against him. Training is proved when the pull arrives. The pull here is subtle. It does not look like anger. It does not look like panic. It is quieter than that. It is the soft pressure of rhythm. The hum of the engine. The even lanes. The clear sky. The mind beginning to loosen its grip on attention. The thought that this has been done before, that the road is familiar, that the miles will pass if he simply stays in motion. Then another thought follows, just keep going. And another, you cannot afford to stop. And another, a real professional finishes the haul. This is the training ground. The Stoic exercise is not to argue with the road. The road cannot hear you. It is not to resent the schedule. The schedule does not become wiser because you hate it. It is not to curse the body for growing tired. The body is part of nature, and nature does not ask permission before presenting limits. The exercise is to bring the ruling faculty back to its proper work. First, pause before assent. Not a theatrical pause. Not a speech. An inward halt. A refusal to let the first appearance rush straight into action. The impression says, stopping would be failure. The trained mind answers, wait. Let that be examined. Second, name the impression. Say it plainly in the mind, this is the impression that urgency has authority over judgment. This is the impression that reputation is more important than reason. This is the impression that the hypnotic pull of the road can decide for me. Naming matters because the unnamed impression moves like a hidden order. Once named, it becomes something seen. And what is seen can be tested. Third, separate the event from the judgment. The event is simple, I am driving at 3 a.m. I have miles ahead. The engine hum is pressing on attention. Fatigue is present. The schedule has consequences. The judgment is added, therefore, I must continue exactly as planned, and any change proves something shameful about me. That added judgment is where the error lives. A delivery window is an external. A reputation is an external. Another person's reaction is external. Even the smoothness of the highway is external. But the judgment that says, I must place these things above examined choice, that belongs to the mind. And because it belongs to the mind, it can be corrected. Fourth, return to the anchor. The large steering wheel is not decoration in this exercise. It is the object that brings attention back from the fog of abstraction. Feel the wheel. Notice the grip. Notice the hands. Notice whether the mind is present enough to command those hands with reason. The wheel is where philosophy becomes physical. It asks one question without words, who is governing this next movement? Not pride. Not fear. Not the imagined criticism of someone far away. Not the pressure of having already driven many miles. Not the desire to make the night obey your plan. Judgment must govern. And judgment may command an action the ego dislikes. It may command slowing the pattern. It may command finding the next lawful, safe place to stop. It may command making the call, accepting the delay, and refusing to treat embarrassment as disaster. It may command choosing the responsible action even when the mind wants the appearance of toughness. That is ascesis, not a grand victory over the world, but a clean refusal to betray the faculty that chooses. The untrained man asks, how do I force myself through this? The trained man asks, what is mine to govern right now? That question changes the room of the cab. It does not remove the miles. It does not silence the diesel. It does not guarantee approval. But it restores the proper order. The road is road. The schedule is schedule. The body is body. The impression is impression. And the ruling faculty returns to its post. This is the discipline Epictetus keeps demanding. Do not let externals vote on the worth of your soul. Do not let pressure become permission. Do not let the first appearance hold the pen that writes your next act. Train here. In the hum. In the night. In the hand on the wheel. In the inward pause before agreement. Conduct is where philosophy stops being admired and starts being tested. A man can speak well about judgment when he is rested. He can say all the right words about control, assent, duty, and reason while sitting at a kitchen table with daylight in the window. But the question is not whether he can respect wisdom from a distance. The question is whether wisdom governs his conduct when the cab is moving, the highway is empty, the diesel hum is steady, and the mind wants to confuse pressure with command. Duty is real. The load is real. The miles are real. The people depending on the work are real. A Stoic does not use philosophy as a cover for laziness, avoidance, or careless delay. He does not say, Outcomes are not mine, and then abandon the work entrusted to him. That would not be wisdom. That would be evasion wearing a serious face. But duty must be ruled by judgment, not by pride. The trucker's responsibility is not merely to keep the wheels moving. His responsibility is to act as a rational human being inside the role he has accepted. He has a duty to the cargo, to the road, to the people around him, to the family waiting at home, to the company that hired him, and to his own faculty of choice. These duties do not disappear because the night is inconvenient. They also do not become fulfilled by blind stubbornness. There is a false kind of responsibility that sounds strong but is only vanity. It says, I said I would make it, so I must keep going no matter what. It says, I cannot let anyone think I am unreliable. It says, other men can push through this, so I have to push through it too. It says, my value is on the other side of these miles. That voice may sound disciplined, but examine it. Is it serving reason, or is it serving reputation? Is it obeying duty, or is it trying to protect an image? Is it choosing the next right action, or is it afraid of the next uncomfortable explanation? Epictetus would bring the matter back to what is yours. Your conduct is yours. Your intention is yours. Your honesty about the present condition is yours. Your willingness to revise an action when judgment requires it is yours. Your refusal to make pride the driver is yours. The delivery's final outcome is not yours. The reaction of the dispatcher is not yours. The opinion of another driver is not yours. The exact timing of the whole world is not yours. Even the fact that the body has limits at 3 a.m. is not entirely yours. You did not create nature, and you do not command it by pretending it has no claim. So the responsible question is not, how do I avoid looking bad? The responsible question is, what does right conduct require now? Sometimes right conduct requires continuing with disciplined attention. Sometimes it requires changing the plan. Sometimes it requires admitting that the original intention no longer fits the present facts. Sometimes it requires making the plain, adult choice that pride hates because it cannot decorate itself as toughness. The large steering wheel remains under the hands, but the wheel is not the center of authority. The ruling faculty is. The hands must be governed by judgment. The eyes must be governed by judgment. The next mile must be governed by judgment. If the mind notices that the hypnotic lure of the road is pressing too hard, then duty does not demand denial. Duty demands clear recognition. A man is not honorable because he refuses correction. He is honorable when correction becomes necessary and he accepts it without drama. There is no nobility in letting an external thing inflate itself above reason. A schedule can be respected without being worshipped. A promise can be honored without pretending that circumstance has not changed. Work can be taken seriously without allowing work to become the measure of the soul. This is the conduct Epictetus is pointing toward. Do the role in front of you, but do not become a slave to the externals attached to that role. Be a trucker with discipline, not a man possessed by miles. Be a worker with responsibility, not a servant of reputation. Be someone who cares about the delivery, not someone who sacrifices judgment to the fear of a delay. The difference is invisible from the outside at first. One man keeps driving because judgment says he is fit to continue. Another keeps driving because he is afraid of what stopping would mean. The same motion can come from reason or from slavery. Stoicism is concerned with the source. So examine the source. When the diesel hum presses the mind to drift, when the dark road begins to feel endless, when the thought comes that there is no choice, return to conduct. Not feelings. Not image. Not fantasy. Conduct. What action can you stand behind as a rational person? What action respects the role without betraying the faculty that must govern the role? What action would still be correct even if no one praised it? This is responsibility without illusion. It does not ask the world to become easy. It asks the man to stop handing his authority to what is not his. Freedom, in this cab, is not the freedom to erase the miles. It is not the freedom to make the schedule forgiving, the dispatcher patient, or the body endlessly alert. That kind of freedom belongs to fantasy, and fantasy has no place behind a wheel at 3 a.m. Real freedom is smaller and stronger. It is the freedom to stop calling pressure a command. It is the freedom to see the diesel hum, the empty highway, the pull of sleep, the weight of the delivery, and still keep judgment in its proper seat. It is the freedom to say, this is an impression, not a law. This is an external, not my master. This is a difficult condition, not a verdict on my worth. The road may continue. The deadline may remain. The consequence may still arrive. But none of these can force the ruling faculty to agree with a false judgment. That is what Epictetus once protected. Not comfort. not reputation. Not the clean appearance of having everything under control. He wants the part of you that chooses to remain unbought by fear, pride, fatigue, and public opinion. So when the hour is late, when the rhythm becomes heavy, when the mind begins to treat motion as duty and stopping as shame, return to the simple division. What is the event? What is the judgment? What is yours? Then choose the next governable action with a clear mind and a steady hand. Return to what is yours to govern.